Hello and welcome to another Tri-tutors video. In today's video, this is the last video in the Life of Pi series. We're going to be discussing Pi's life in Toronto in 3 ways. We're going to talk about what the author notices about Pi. We're going to notice what the author remarks about life in general. That's just a really quick point. And then we're going to talk about Pi's reflections of his life now that he is in Canada, years later, talking to the author. So what the author notices about Pi, he notices a couple of things which I've written out here, and then I've shown you the quotes which prove that. Food insecurity, he's a vegetarian, he still practices 3 religions, he's married with a son and a daughter, he has completely rebuilt his life, but Richard Parker still haunts him. He has vivid memories of some events, but struggles to recall aspects such as his mother's appearance, which deeply upsets him. He has only a few blurry photographs sent to him from India after he arrived in Canada as remnants of his family. So here are the quotes that prove that. His cupboards are jam-packed, a reserve of food to last the siege of Leningrad. Memory is an ocean and he bobs on its surface, but he wants to tell me his story. After all these years, Richard Parker still preys on his mind. He is a sweet man. Every time I visit, he prepares a South Indian vegetarian feast. His house is a temple. Upstairs in his office there is a brass Ganesha sitting cross-legged next to his computer, and a wooden Christ on the cross from Brazil on a wall, and a green prayer rug in the corner. An intellect confounded, yet a trusting sense of presence and, of course, ultimate purpose. A smile every time, but his eyes tell another story. It's very sad not to remember what your mother looks like. This story has a happy ending. Please pardon my typing error. He is a sweet man, not has a sweet man. So as you can see here, we notice how Pi has transformed, or how he's changed since his experience, but also I'm always struck by how little he has changed. He still practices 3 religions. He's gone back to vegetarianism after he goes through the survivalist ordeal where he has to give that up. He's still optimistic about life. He has these moments of sadness, obviously, where he doesn't remember certain details, or he doesn't have a lot to connect him to his family, but he's created a new family for himself. He's adapted and into Canadian culture, and he seems to be living a good life. And when the author comes to ask him about these questions and asks him to tell his story, he's happy to share the information. And it's very comforting, I suppose, to see after all he's been through that he does have this beautiful life that he's created. And it shows you once again that the power of free will and about Pi's actions cementing his survival, but also his transformation, also his ability to live this life that he has created for himself. And I think that that's something that, we shouldn't take lightly, because I do feel like this is definitely an example of free will triumphing over fate. Just a quick comment that the author remarks about life, which I thought was quite interesting. They were there all along, but I hadn't seen them because I wasn't looking for them. So here he's talking about like the fact that Pi has children and a wife. Like, he didn't notice in the house, but once he knew of their existence, he couldn't help but see all these signs linking to them. And I think that's really significant also in terms of Pi's relationship with God and faith. And it's about, how if you don't look for something, then you're never going to find it. And so Pi looks for things, whether it's in faith, whether it's in his reasonable mind, looking for survival, and therefore he finds things. So that teaches us, I think, a really important lesson about life itself. These are Pi's reflections about his survival and his journey. He asks the author, "Could you tell my jumbled story in exactly 100 chapters? Not one more, not one less." I'll tell you, that's one thing I hate about my nickname, the way that number runs on forever. It's important in life to conclude things properly. Only then can you let go. Otherwise, you are left with words you should have said but never did, and your heart is heavy with remorse. That bungled goodbye hurts me to this day. I wish so much that I'd had one last look at him in the lifeboat, that I'd provoked him a little, so that I was on his mind. I wish I had said to him then, yes, I know, to a tiger, but still, I wish I had said, Richard Parker, it's over. We have survived. Can you believe it? I owe you more gratitude than I can express. I couldn't have done it without you. I would like to say it formally. Richard Parker, thank you. Thank you for saving my life. And now go where you must. You have known the confined freedom of a zoo for most of your life. Now you will know the free confinement of a jungle. I wish you all the best with it. Watch out, man. He is not your friend, but I hope you remember me as a friend. I will never forget you, that is certain. You will always be with me, in my heart. What is that hiss? Ah, our boat has touched sand. So farewell, Richard Parker. Farewell. God be with you. I think this is really interesting because it tells us of Pi's maybe sort of level of a bit of OCD or his trauma from the past, and the fact that he wants the story to be told in 100 chapters, and he's very, very much he gets upset by his name because pi obviously is a number that goes on forever and ever. And this shows us, well, this is indicative of the trauma that he went through, where he didn't know when it was going to end. He didn't know when he was going to be rescued, when he was going to find salvation, if he was going to survive. And so now in his life, the effect of that is he tries to find certainty. And this thing of not saying goodbye, we can also see that runs deeply. Obviously, he wasn't able to say goodbye to his family, but he wasn't able to say goodbye to Richard Parker. Richard Parker just left him, and that feeling of abandonment stays with him years and years later. I was overwhelmed by the generosity of those who rescued me. Poor people gave me clothes and food. Doctors and nurses cared for me as if I were a premature baby. There was only one long, easy corridor I had to walk down. To all these people, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks. Pi is extremely optimistic and such an admirable figure. I mean, he could have come off this experience and been totally depressed and traumatized, and he would have had every excuse to be like that. But what he's done, and what we can see from the last bits of the book, or when actually it's not really the last bits, but it's more when the writer switches to italics and we see the author's perspective, is that Pi is extremely grateful for surviving, but also he's extremely optimistic. So he sees his life, he sees what he's done, his ordeal, but he notices its suffering in its finite form, and he's able to rise above that and create this entirely new life for himself. He is so thankful for the generosity he's endured, and he even says, which I think is a bit of a crazy thing to say, he says that he's had one long passage where he's just had to easily walk through to get where he is in life, you know, to have studied at university, to be living this married life in Canada. And I mean, he says from the point where he got off the ship in Mexico, people have been so good to him, and he's grateful for that, and it's all been like, you know, easy from there. So I don't know if that's you know, maybe a bit of an overstatement of things being super easy, but it just shows us Pi's gratitude and his optimism. And I think these things are so important and so integral in his survival process. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video helpful. Please remember to like the video and to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.